Hello, guys, and welcome back to Jarvis Loves Movies. Today, I'm going to be discussing 10 movies that I watched for the first time last year, 2024, and that really made the biggest impact on me. I talked about this a lot in my other video where I kind of fell out of film. I've loved film ever since I was a child. I got really into it as a teenager, and then kind of that middle period after graduating high school, the pandemic, I just kind of really didn't watch many movies a year. I just kind of put it off. Just kind of, never that I didn't fall out of it. I still kind of like movie news and kind of keeping up with that. But like I think I didn't go to a theater for 2 years and stuff like that. So for me, I want to talk about the movies that I watched, and I'm going to get into them more when I watched them for the first time and kind of my reactions to it. But these are the movies that really restored or kind of really rejuvenated my love of film. So let's get into it. All right, number 10 on the list is The Squid and the Whale. This is a movie that I think is definitely rated, but it's not really a super popular. It is kind of that independent that there's like that really big boost in the mid 2000s of like really good indie kind of like, well, they're usually done by like Sony Studios or Fox Searchlight Studios, like things like Juno, Little Miss Sunshine, and this would definitely fit in that. It's a Noah Baumbach picture. He's basically the guy who's he's friends with Wes Anderson. That's all I really knew him from. But this film really just blew me away. As someone who was a child of divorce, and divorce is something that was something big in my life, I don't think it still probably affects me in some ways to this day. But I think it's something that's always kind of lingering in the back of your mind that your parents aren't together, they divorced young. And this movie, I think, just really tells a really solid tale of a family that's falling apart and all the different dynamics and struggles that people go through when their family is broken up, right? Like, this is not a very easy thing. I thought there was a lot of great visual metaphors with, like, the tennis match, and I also absolutely loved Jeff Daniels in this role. Jeff Daniels was absolutely amazing. I've seen him in other films like Dumber and Dumber, like a show he had a few years ago, but he is a phenomenal actor and really blew me away. Great film. All right, next on the list is actually the last movie I watched of 2024, and as this is actually embarrassingly my first Francis Ford Coppola watch, and that is Apocalypse Now. What a fucking masterpiece this is throughout a 3 hour long saga about one man's journey into the heart of basically the jungle. And this movie is just, what is there more to say? It is just phenomenally done, phenomenally filmed, has some of the greatest set action pieces, some of the best characters, some really good dialogue. And Marlon Brando was, even though he's barely in this movie, he is one of the best characters I've ever seen in film. And I think it was just such a well done film. I got to watch it on a bigger screen. Just really felt really immersed with this. And this got me to finally watch The Godfather, which I didn't technically watch till this year. So that won't be on this list, but Apocalypse Now, what a masterpiece. Francis Ford Coppola, what were you on? You made The Godfather, Godfather Part 2, and then Apocalypse Now. And now you make Megalopolis. Next on the list, we got Glengarry Glen Ross. One of the weirdest titled movies ever. It is probably, I think if this film had a better title, it would probably be a lot more widely renowned. I think this is a Film Bro. It's kind of more the underrated Film Bro version of Pulp Fiction. It's not a crime movie. Actually, it kind of is a crime movie, but it's not a crime movie in the sense that Pulp Fiction is. But this is such a well-written movie, has such enamoring characters, such good performances throughout. It was one of my first Pacino movies I seen. I didn't really watch much Pacino. I always kind of knew about him. But this is like the first movie I was like, wow, he is a fucking actor. And there's just so many quotable lines in this movie. And just overall, definitely worth the watch, especially if you like fascinating dialogue and some good performances. Next, we have Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. This is a trip. Of course, it's a trip. It's about a man's journey to Las Vegas to find the American way and take all the drugs he can along the way. But it's such a good film. Terry Gilliam is one of the most impressive practical effects directors or effect directors. I know now he's kind of slipped into a lot of CGI and stuff like that, but this movie is such an accurate representation of shrooms, of taking those kind of drugs, And it's just such an enamoring film with Johnny Depp playing Hunter S. Thompson, who is also a very enamoring writer, and basically was able to such accurately portray him while giving it his own flair. I think it's just so cool how poetic the movie is throughout the movie. It's also, I've read the book, and the book, I think it's also probably one of the greatest book to film adaptations of all time. And obviously, worth to watch. Definitely an amazing film. And this really got me into respecting Terry Gilliam, checking out his other work, Brazil, Fisher King. He is a very impressive director. All right, next we got 2001: A Space Odyssey. Yes, this is a huge one that I never watched. I've always seen so much of the references. Obviously, the soundtrack, so many sequences in the film are constantly being referenced. And this movie, whenever you watch the film, it all makes sense. This is such a mesmerizing film, as many Kubrick films are. But the slow pace, the way that it almost like hypnotizes you into this film, and what an ending. This movie was really kind of, I've seen The Shining. I didn't always respect Kubrick, but I didn't really see much of his work. But this made me go to see Barry Lyndon, go check out his early movie, The Killing, Clockwork Orange. This movie is what really was like, okay, I can't just say, yeah, Kubrick's really good, but I haven't seen any of his movies. I got to check this guy out. And this guy, what can there say? He's a genius. He's got. Next, we got Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. This movie is Charlie Kaufman. You hit us in the heart every time. This is such a masterfully well done written film. Just on paper, I think the concept is genius, just like many Kaufman movies. And then when you get to watch the movie unravel, you get to learn so much about these characters, Joel and Clementine. They are probably some of the best leads I've seen in any film. The way that Jim Carrey has brought so many layers and levels to this role, and also too with the direction from Michel Gondry is so important, because I think this film, I think just because it's Kaufman, it'd be hard to be, this is like a run-of-the-mill breakup kind of romance film, whatever. But no, I think you need a very visionary director, someone who uses so many unique techniques, and Michel Gondry just put his masterwork here. This was such a beautiful film. This got me, again, more into Kaufman, although before this I technically did see Being John Malkovich, which I did, that was like really got me into Kaufman. But this like sealed the deal for just how much of a great writer and how much of a treasure of a screenwriter that he is. I also would love to put, I didn't want to put multiple directors, because I think a lot of these, I really want to talk about the films that were what got me into their work. And so I really want to put Synecdoche, New York, because I think that's also a masterpiece. But I'll just leave it to one person per film. All right, next we got Barton Fink. And this movie, I've always was kind of aware of it, but I didn't know anything about it. I always kind of saw the poster with like the fly shadow, that hair. It always just seemed just so interesting. And I found out later, I didn't really know at the time, that it was a Coen Brothers movie. And I loved The Big Lebowski. And at the time, that was the only Coen Brothers film I watched. But so one day, I just threw it on. To me, I like to go blind to movies. And this movie is so fucking good. The Coen Brothers are just, to me, I would say easily the best American directors. I do want to do a top 10 list of my favorite directors. But their way of capturing Americana is impressive. Like, it's just so, it makes you almost jealous that there's people that are this smart that are able to do it. But I'm not as smart as them, but I'm able to appreciate their work. And this is so good. Especially John Turturro is amazing as Barton, and including some of the best. Of course, it's a Coen Brothers movie. It's a Coen Brothers movie. Of course, the supporting actors are going to be amazing. John Goodman is, I don't know what this to say. You gotta watch this film. You gotta watch this film. I also am so excited to rewatch it, because I did get some messages from the film. I don't want to spoil it if you haven't seen it, but it's a film that it's definitely, the more you watch it, the more it unravels, the more it makes sense, and the more you can take away from it. So that's definitely, to me, a really exciting film. This led me to going to the deep dive of Coen Brothers' careers, and I don't understand how this was possible. Raising Arizona, Miller's Crossing, Barton Fink, Fargo, Big Lebowski. It is just such an impressive run of films that they went on. They are some of the best directors working today. Next, we have The Holy Mountain. I love this film. This was the most rewatched film for me. I watched this film 4 times. I think I watched half of the director's commentary, but I got busy. So 4.5, I guess you could say. Oh my God, Jodorowsky. He is also another one of those creative geniuses that you almost get somewhat jealous of when you watch his works. But at the same time, he is such a unique figure in filmmaking and modern art. And this film is just such a good film. And there's just so many things you can talk about. You can talk about how impressive cinematically this film looks like kind of like one of those great epic films. This film had $1 million budget. That is so impressive. $1 million, and they're able to do this much with it. Some of the best sets, some amazing performances, although they're not really a typical acting performance, but they throughout do an amazing job. The way it's edited, the soundtrack, everything about this movie is great. And also on top of that, there's just so much stuff you could take away from it. Just so much good commentary, satire. Also, I'm a huge fan of absurdist art and surreal art, and this is a masterclass in surreal movies and that surreal 70s weird films. I just love this so much. And the great thing about this movie is I've shown this to people who are not really into art films, that aren't really, when you say Jodorowsky, they're going to scream. They don't know who that is. But I've seen everyone who's, at least, whether they liked it or they didn't like it, I always heard, this is a movie I can't keep my eyes off. This is a movie, when you put it on, whether you like it or you don't like it, you're going to be mesmerized by this film. And I think that is absolutely such a good achievement in high art. And throughout this led me again to discovering more of Jodorowsky films, which I had no idea really who he was before this film. And I honestly think he is one of the most perfect filmographies in directing history. Alright, so I filmed that segment 2 days ago. That's why I'm wearing a different shirt. My beard's probably slightly more grown in, whatever. But I am mad at myself. I cannot believe that I did not talk about John Waters. Holy hell, he is an amazing filmmaker. And for me, what kind of got me into it, what took away my John Waters virginity, was Pink Flamingos. Obviously, his most infamous film, the film he's asked about the most to this day. And it really did blow me away. It was such a frankly uncomfortable, weird, filthy, nasty, you feel like you shouldn't be watching parts of this film. And that is exactly why he's such an enamoring director. This led me into finding more of his work. Polyester is probably my favorite dark comedy of all time. My favorite of his work is Cecil to be Demented. But overall, I'm so glad I got out to watch this film. I remember hearing about him for many years. He's a very infamous director, while not being, I would say, the most mainstream director. But he has just accomplished so much in his career. I absolutely adore all of his work. And I'm so glad I finally decided to go all the way. Thank you, John Waters. And finally, on the list, every film bro's favorite crime movie, Goodfellas. Wow, this was a recommendation from one of my friends at work, and he just said, "You didn't see Goodfellas? What the hell are you doing? Watch Goodfellas. Just put it on." And I thought, okay. I always felt bad I didn't watch it. I always heard so much about it, and I always heard so much praises from it. And so put it on. It was actually a really crappy, at the time my setup was awful. I had just moved into a new place. And this really is a movie that made me fall in love with film again. I was familiar with some of Scorsese's film. I always loved Wolf of Wall Street. But this is a masterclass in everything. I feel like I said masterclass to all these people. All these people are masters at what they do. And Scorsese is absolutely no fault. To me, I think there's always the two camps of crime films or mafia gangster films, which would be The Godfather or Goodfellas. To me, I fall more on the Goodfellas side. To me, I just find it such a better edited. I enjoy the pace of the film a lot more. Although I do appreciate The Godfather. To me, this is exactly the crime movie I want. So many great characters, so many great lines. The opening itself, I always want to be a gangster. Boom. Trump pop. What a way to get into a movie. What a way. De Niro, everyone in this film is great. them cutting the garlic with the razors in prison. It is just such a great film, and really goes kind of deep into where you basically like this lifestyle leads you to having such dehumanizing effects and everything like that. I do know it's not the most accurate film to the actual life of. It's not the most accurate portrayal of Ray Liotta's character and his family, but nevertheless, it makes a good film, and that's all I care about. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, hit the sub.